Hey guys, tonight we're headed to the rainy, silver-lit skyline of Seattle. 2014, a place where coffee shops never close. Everyone owns at least one fleece jacket, and no one uses umbrellas, even though it rains like it's a full-time job. You're standing at the glass wall of a luxury apartment near Lake Union, watching condensation trace long, trembling lines down the pane. Somewhere in the distance, the Space Needle blinks like a quiet warning. Inside, everything smells faintly of citrus floor polish and baby shampoo. Claire Grayson, glowing with a third pregnancy, paces in socked feet across hardwood floors. The dishwasher hums a forgotten lullaby. Her husband, Ethan, is on his third business trip this month. London, then Singapore, now New York. You pass a gallery of family photos, Hazel in pink ballet tights, Micah with ice cream on his nose, Claire holding a half-assembled crib. It all looks beautiful, achingly so. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while we're settling in, tell me, where are you listening from, and what time is it by you right now? I always love knowing who's awake with me. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. It starts, as these things do, not with a scream, but with a stranger. A woman on a park bench, her coat too thin for the weather, watching children she doesn't know with a kind of stillness that most people don't notice. But Claire does. She's been noticing everything lately, how heavy her legs feel, how Hazel sometimes frowns when no one's watching, how Micah cries longer now before sleep. She's trying her best, but it's a lot. The park in question is Gasworks, where old machinery rusts in photogenic ruin and toddlers run like wind-up toys across grass that's always a little soggy. Claire is juggling juice boxes in one of those tiny soccer balls when Nora Esteban first speaks. "You've got your hands full," she says, soft as fog. You turn. A woman in her mid-30s, brown eyes, dark hair pulled back in a way that says no time for anything else. She's holding a book she hasn't opened and smiling like she already knows your kids' names. Claire smiles back. Automatically, Nora is easy to talk to, polite, gentle, and speaks with a kind of melodic accent Claire can't quite place. Honduras. It turns out, she tells Claire she's been in the U.S. for almost 2 years, helping her sister, and mentions, almost as an afterthought, that her sister used to nanny. Claire hesitates. They've been looking, but hiring help always feels uncomfortable, privileged, complicated. Still, Nora's eyes flick kindly to the kids, who have now started chasing pigeons. "I've got experience," she offers, "and I have a teenage son, so I know how quickly they grow." That's the moment you feel something shift. The slow, invisible gravity that pulls lives together or tears them apart. Some scholars call it chance. Others prefer fate. Historians still argue whether most crimes start with a decision or with the illusion that you never made one. Back in the apartment, Claire types Nora's name into a background check service. Nothing. Clean. She calls the references. Sweet women. Soft accents. Warm praise. One woman even cries, saying Nora was like family. The next week, Nora starts work. Hazel draws her a picture on day 1. A big, misshapen heart with Nora spelled backwards. Micah follows her like a shadow. Even the building staff comment on how polite she is. Always a nod. A thank you. Never a single complaint. And Claire starts breathing again. There are hot showers now. Dinner doesn't burn. She even goes to prenatal yoga. Just once. Seattle, meanwhile, continues its weather opera. Rain, mist, drizzle. The occasional surprise sunbeam like a spotlight in a bleak play. You watch the seasons fold into each other, like pages curling in a forgotten novel. Life settles into a new rhythm. One cold Thursday, Claire finds Nora humming in the kitchen while peeling an apple in one long, perfect curl. A quiet domestic miracle. They talk about Christmas. Nora says she'll spend it with her sister, maybe send money to her family back home. Claire insists on buying her a ticket to Honduras. Ethan agrees, barely looking up from his phone. There's a historical footnote here. Did you know that in 1889, Seattle burned to the ground in a single day? They rebuilt it over the ashes-layered streets on top of charred streets. It's why the sidewalks feel so uneven. The city looks forward, always forward, but you'd be surprised how many ghosts live under the concrete. Back in the Grayson home, Claire doesn't know a ghost is forming. Not yet. You're back at the park a few weeks later, bundled in fleece and clutching lukewarm coffee in a cup that's too flimsy for the wind. Nora is with you, watching Micah chase a crow he'll never catch. Hazel is talking about her ballet recital, her sentences tangled with excitement and baby teeth. This is the moment Claire starts calling Nora part of the family. It's the kind of phrase people toss out like throw pillows. Comfortable, decorative, harmless. But you notice how Nora never says it back. You walk through the rhythms of early winter. Claire wraps gifts while Nora rocks Micah by the window. Nora's son Julian appears on weekends, now quiet. Polite, tall. He wears his school uniform even on Saturdays, as if education might notice and reward the effort. One Sunday morning, Claire hands Nora an envelope with holiday cash, a bonus. Nora accepts it, smiling, but her fingers press the edge too tight. She doesn't mention that Julian's private school raised tuition, or that her rent just doubled, or that the apartment she shares with her sister has a mildew problem and no heat. Instead, she says thank you, then quietly wonders, later that night, why thank yous feel like chains. You've seen this story before, only with different curtains. The live-in help, the silent burden, the social gap nobody wants to name, but everyone lives inside. Historians still debate whether domestic roles evolved from mutual need or designed subservience. In either case, Nora plays her part flawlessly until she doesn't. Let's linger for a moment in that strange between space, because for now, Nora is still the dream nanny. She hand washes Hazel's stuffed flamingo when it falls in the toilet. She sings lullabies. Micah doesn't understand but finds comforting. She slices fruit into stars. She even organizes Claire's pantry without being asked. You should know, in Honduras, there's a cultural saying, La envidia entra por los ojos. Envy enters through the eyes. And in Nora's case, it's every time she walks into the Graysons' white and stainless kitchen. Every time Claire offers her leftover risotto. Every time Ethan gives Claire a kiss goodbye while Nora watches from the corner, unseen. She begins to study Claire like a textbook. The way she carries herself, her soft knit sweaters, her casual laughter, the way she assumes, without malice, that the world will help her. Meanwhile, Nora starts keeping receipts literal and emotional. Every little favor, every perceived slight. She doesn't tell anyone when Julian's classmate makes a joke about immigrants. She doesn't tell Claire that her sister can't afford asthma medication. Instead, she smiles and folds laundry. This is how resentment grows best. Not in screams, but in silence. Over time, like mold behind a picture frame. You find a particularly eerie moment in mid-January. Claire invites Nora to dinner. A full seat at the table. Ethan opens a bottle of Pinot Noir. Hazel makes Nora a glitter crown from pipe cleaners. It should have been a celebration, but Nora eats slowly. Too slowly. She watches the way Ethan places his hand on Claire's thigh, the way Claire laughs without checking who's listening. Nora's smile never fades, but something else does. Later, when Claire asks if she had a nice time, Nora says, "Of course, it's beautiful, what you have," and she means it, but not kindly. Here's your historical fun fact to digest with that rising discomfort. The Space Needle, Seattle's most iconic landmark, was once considered an eyesore by locals when it was first built. Too modern, too alien. Now it's beloved, imitated, sold on t-shirts. Strange how time softens the things we resent. Unless it doesn't. You watch the small domestic moments twist ever so slightly. Nora stops laughing at Ethan's jokes. She doesn't join Claire on outings as often. Julian stops coming by. Claire doesn't notice. She assumes Nora's just busy. One day, Nora picks up a tiny broken figurine from the floor, a ballerina Hazel had dropped. She tucks it into her pocket. Claire never sees. Does it mean anything? Hard to say, but it happens. So does the next thing. Claire, overwhelmed with the third pregnancy and trying to manage Ethan's growing absence, gently suggests to Nora, "If you're looking for extra hours, we'd be happy to pay you to help tidy up the apartment a few hours a week." There's no malice in her voice. You know this. She means well. But you also know that words land based on the listener's wound, not the speaker's intent. Nora says nothing for a second too long, then nods. "Sure," she says. "I'd love to." But she wouldn't, because in her mind, That offer was something else entirely. It was Claire saying, "You're not quite enough." It was Claire reducing her to a cleaner, a servant, not part of the family after all. It's a moment historians might overlook, but you feel the pivot. From admiration to envy, from envy to grievance, from grievance to something colder. Nora begins staying late even when she's not scheduled. She takes longer glances at Hazel's drawings. She watches Micah sleep a little too long. You notice, but no one else does. Not yet. You're in the kitchen again. The good light hits the white marble counters just right. A vase of tulips leans dramatically toward a bowl of clementines. Claire is pouring oat milk into her coffee. Nora prefers whole milk, but she doesn't say anything. Not anymore. It's February now. That strange season where the city forgets whether it's winter or spring. Seattle fog spills over the hills like an uninvited guest. Micah started refusing naps unless Nora sings to him. Hazel insists on showing her every crayon drawing. The Graysons adore her, but that's the problem, isn't it? Nora doesn't feel like a guest anymore. She feels like a ghost, always there, always needed, never truly seen. There's an open document on Claire's laptop, baby name ideas. Nora's eyes flick to it while wiping the table. Jonas, Camille, Mara. She wonders, not for the first time, why Claire's children get names that sound like magazine covers while Julian's name never shows up on roll call with the right accent. Let's pause for a moment in the elevator. It's the kind of elevator that plays soft jazz and smells faintly of lavender cleaner. Nora stands beside the doorman. He's friendly. Always says you've got the magic touch with those kids. She smiles, but says nothing. Inside, she's replaying a memory from last night. Julian sitting silently at the dinner table, pushing rice around his plate, telling her he's thinking of dropping out. Historians still debate whether the American dream is something you climb or something you're handed. Nora used to believe in the climb, but lately, every rung feels slippery, and the Graysons' golden ladder makes hers feel like driftwood. Now you're watching her do something strange. She lingers in the master bedroom while Claire is in the shower. It's innocent enough on the surface. She adjusts a pillow, picks up a gold bracelet from the vanity, holds it, wears it for a second, puts it back. Tiny trespasses, quiet rehearsals for something darker. Claire tells Ethan over the phone that Nora feels like a blessing. Ethan grunts agreement, distracted by a Bloomberg notification. He doesn't remember Nora's last name or her son's name, but Nora remembers everything. She keeps a folder now. Printed pay stubs, bank statements, Julian's rejection letter from the school's scholarship committee, notes scribbled in margins. A sticky note that reads simply, "How much is loyalty worth?" You start to feel it, don't you? That humming dissonance under the surface, like an orchestra tuning up before a piece you really don't want to hear. And now, a curious historical detour. In 1919, Seattle was home to the first general strike in some history where laborers from every industry walked off the job in solidarity. For 5 days, the city went silent. No trains, no phones, no trash pickup. A peaceful protest that terrified the nation. Power in quiet refusal. Maybe Nora read about it that once. Or maybe she just feels the silence now, swelling in her bones. She doesn't yell. She doesn't break things. But she begins to keep to herself. She leaves early when she can. Doesn't make eye contact with the doorman anymore. Then comes the day she catches Claire laughing on the phone. Not cruelly, just lightly. It's about a friend whose nanny moved away. And Claire says she's totally panicking. I told her I could loan her Nora for a few hours. Loan. That word is the match. Nora doesn't say anything, just smiles faintly and takes the kids to the park. But inside, something tilts and doesn't tilt back. You're now watching a different woman than the one who once brought homemade tamales for Christmas. Her eyes stay on Hazel too long. She forgets Micah's favorite toy at home. She stops calling Julian during breaks. She starts checking the locks on the bathroom doors. Just once, after Hazel falls asleep in her lap, Nora whispers something no one hears. This world isn't fair. You don't need to know what happens next, not yet, but you already feel it. The pre-murder stillness that no one can prove but everyone recognizes in hindsight. It's the same stillness before a volcano erupts or when a glass teeters before falling. You find Nora sitting by the bathtub one night, alone, running the water, then draining it. Just running it. You remember that old fringe belief, don't you? The one from 16th century Europe that mirrors captured souls, and water remembered sorrow. Superstition. Of course, but Nora believes in patterns, and she's looking for one she can break. Because somewhere between Claire's fridge full of berries and Julian's unopened tuition bill, Nora has made a decision. Not in words, in weight, in silence. In the space between gestures, she begins keeping a knife in her handbag. You're looking through Nora's eyes now. It's Thursday, November 6th. The Grayson apartment smells like citrus cleaner and microwaved mac and cheese. Hazel's got glitter glue on her sleeves. Micah's teething again and won't stop crying unless Nora hums that lullaby La Llorona, the one her grandmother used to sing. Claire is in her third trimester now, waddling more than walking. She winces when she stands, forgets things she used to remember easily, like where she left her phone or what time ballet class starts. Nora steps in without being asked, always just there, the perfect ghost. But inside her, something brittle. You follow Nora into her sister's apartment that night, smaller, louder, with a hallway that smells like old laundry. Julian is on the couch, headphones on, eyes blank. He doesn't look up. On the kitchen table sits a thin envelope, his latest school bill. The balance due is circled in red. Nora doesn't cry. She just folds the paper, slides it under a pile of coupons, and texts Claire, Micah has a cough. Maybe skip ballet tomorrow. I'll keep both kids home so you can rest. Claire replies with a heart emoji. That night, Nora doesn't sleep. Instead, she types. You hear the faint click of keys as she drafts a note, part farewell, part confession. She prints it, folds it, hides it. You notice she counts cash neatly, in rubber bands, then checks the knife, not in a rush, not in panic, but like someone laying out clothes for tomorrow. Historians still argue whether premeditation lives in the mind or the body, whether planning a murder is a rational process or a trance. Nora's actions are deliberate, chillingly so. Flash forward 6 days. Wednesday, November 12th, 2014. The sky is that muted gray. Seattle does best sunless, endless. Nora arrives early. Hazel giggles when she sees her. Micah reaches out with sticky fingers. Claire kisses both kids goodbye and leaves for her OB appointment. You're an angel, she tells Nora, not knowing the irony will echo in a courtroom someday. Nora packs the diaper bag with mechanical precision. She skips Hazel's ballet class, takes them for ice cream instead. Hazel chooses bubblegum swirl. Micah tries to feed his cone to a pigeon. Security footage shows Nora smiling at the vendor. Nothing odd, nothing cold. A stranger would think she's just a tired mom enjoying a rare sunny hour with 2 kids she loves. That's the trap, isn't it? You watch her walk them home early. They take the elevator. Nora tells the doorman, Claire already left. We're just getting back now. She says it gently. She unlocks the apartment. The kids kick off their shoes. Hazel drops her pink backpack by the front door. Micah whines for a snack. What happens next takes just minutes. You don't see it, but you feel it. A bathroom door clicks shut. Running water. A lullaby. Maybe. Or silence. No struggle that neighbors hear. No breaking glass. Just the quiet chaos of something irreversible. Around 5:30 p.m., Claire returns. You're behind her now, stepping through the door. She sets down her purse, calls out, Hazel. No answer. The air feels off. The lights are dim. One of Hazel's shoes lies alone in the hallway. Claire steps forward, stomach tight, heart racing. Every door she opens leads to nothing, until the bathroom. She pushes it open, and the story shatters. There is blood in the tub. 2 small bodies lie still. Hazel's hair floats like seaweed. Micah's arm dangles over the edge. Nora is on the floor beside them, face pale, eyes empty, a knife trembling in her hand. Claire screams. You feel it in your chest like thunder. And then Nora moves, slowly. Purposefully, she draws the knife up and slashes her own throat. Not deep enough. When the police arrive, Claire is still screaming. A neighbor is trying to keep her from going back into the bathroom. Paramedics stabilize Nora. The children are pronounced dead at the scene. Hazel, 6 years old, stabbed 25 times. Micah, just 2 stabbed, 5. The signs of struggle on Hazel's small arms will haunt the crime scene report for years. You remember that mirror superstition? The one about souls and reflections. This is the kind of moment that breaks glass. Time. People. The city is stunned. The doorman quits the next day. The apartment is sealed. And Nora, she wakes up in a hospital bed with bandages on her neck and no apology in her mouth. You're in the hospital now, where the walls hum with antiseptic and whispered disbelief. Nora lies under bright lights, stitched but silent. A police officer sits outside her door, staring at his boots, wondering how he's going to sleep tonight. She says nothing for days. Not to doctors, not to detectives, not even when they ask her the simplest question. Why? You wonder if silence is her final act of control or just a place she's chosen to live in now. The Graysons, meanwhile, are somewhere else entirely. Claire is sedated. Ethan flies back from New York the same night, shaking so hard he can't sign the morgue papers. Their apartment remains untouched, sealed with yellow tape, like a wound they can't reopen. Family friends step in, funeral arrangements are whispered about, and the media begins circling like vultures. Seattle's rainy skyline now reflects something colder. The news spreads fast. Beloved nanny attacks children. Mother discovers bodies. By morning, it's national. The photos they use are gentle. Nora holding Micah on the swings, Hazel with a painted face, Claire smiling in soft focus. No one knows what to do with the story. It's too much. Too familiar, too wrong. Historians still argue whether the most chilling crimes are random or the ones you almost understand. This one splits opinion. The public outrage is immediate. People scream for justice online. Reddit threads speculate about motives. Former employers come forward saying Nora was quiet and always polite. Her sister, shocked, gives a single tearful interview. I don't understand she loved those children, but there's one person who understands what was taken. Claire. You're in the courtroom now. 4 years later, 2018. Claire sits behind the prosecutor. Thinner, quieter, hair pulled back like armor. She wears a bracelet that once belonged to Hazel. She holds a photo in her lap, fingers trembling. Nora is led and wearing jail-issued beige, no makeup, no jewelry. She doesn't look up, not once. The trial is brutal. Nora's defense claims psychosis. They call psychologists who speak of delusions, of Nora's deteriorating mental state, of the pressure to support her son while hiding shame. They call it a snap, a break, a moment of unreality. The prosecution disagrees. They present the timeline, the printed documents Nora left behind, the premeditated questions she asked the doorman, the letter she wrote to her sister before the killings, the cash set aside, the way she waited in that bathroom knife ready so Claire would walk in and see. They call it what it was, revenge. Not loud, not impulsive, a slow, corrosive kind of hate disguised as helpfulness. There's a moment burned into the trial's memory when Claire takes the stand. She speaks softly, no dramatics, just devastation, measured out one syllable at a time. I trusted her with everything, with them, and she sat there. She made me watch. She doesn't cry until the end. When the prosecutor shows the court a child's drawing, Hazel's last one, a picture of her family. Nora is in it, smiling, wearing the glitter crown Hazel made her. The jury deliberates for 2 days. Nora is found guilty of first-degree murder, life without parole. She doesn't flinch, doesn't speak, doesn't apologize. Her lawyer folds the verdict papers slowly, as if buying time from a storm. You want to know something eerie? During the trial, it's discovered that Nora had started documenting every purchase Claire made in the house. Journals filled with little tallies. How much the blender cost, where the children's toys were from, how often Claire bought new shoes, as if she were tallying a debt the world owed her. One fringe criminology theory says that certain killers don't commit violence out of rage, but out of value imbalance. They begin to see their own suffering as the weight others should carry. And when the math doesn't add up, someone bleeds. Whether Nora believed that, only she knows, but the truth remains. She chose to act. And 2 children are gone because of it. After the trial, Claire walks into a press conference and speaks 2 words, "We begin." No further explanation, no elaboration, just those words. As if rebuilding is an act of war. You're at a funeral now, but not the kind with pews and organ music. This is something smaller, softer. In a private garden north of Seattle, where Claire's aunt plants lavender and wild rosemary in the shape of two letters H and M. There are no reporters here, just a circle of people holding each other up. Hazel is remembered for her sparkle shoes and the way she always corrected adults when they got facts wrong. Micah is remembered for his obsession with wheels, bike wheels, stroller wheels, toy truck wheels. He used to crawl just to spin them. Claire and Ethan speak quietly, alternating phrases like lifelines. We didn't just lose them, Claire says. We lost the noise, the clutter, the art on the fridge. You pause here, not because this is the climax of grief, but because grief has no climax. It's not a mountain, it's the weather. And Seattle knows weather. You shift now to a small conference room 6 months later. Claire's voice has changed. It carries steel under silk. She's speaking to lawmakers, advocates, exhausted parents. We can't undo it, she says, but we can make sure no one else hires a lie wrapped in warmth. This is the beginning of the Hazel and Micah Foundation. At first, it's just grief wearing a nice shirt, but soon it grows teeth. The foundation begins offering free caregiver background checks, subsidized counseling for single parents, and most poignantly, art therapy for traumatized children. One of their early donors is a grandmother from Tacoma who lost her granddaughter in a daycare fire. She writes, "Thank you for giving the nightmare a name." The Graysons start to smile again, but never fully. That part's gone. Still, they build. Ethan steps back from his finance firm to work on policy. Claire stops measuring success in hours slept and starts measuring it in emails from survivors. In 2016, they hold the first Hazel and Micah Gala. There's a silent auction, a jazz trio, a memory wall with kids' paintings clipped to fairy lights. Nora's name is never mentioned, but she's there in the absence, in the shape of what was taken. There's a strange, beautiful detail that sticks with you. Hazel's kindergarten teacher donates a set of watercolors that Hazel once used. There's still glitter inside the caps. Claire cries when she sees them, but then she smiles. You have no idea, she says, how much she believed her paintings were masterpieces. There's a quote etched onto the foundation's website homepage from Hazel's journal, barely legible. "If I were a cloud, I'd be pink, just pink. Because pink never hides." You move now to a city council chamber. It's 2017, and lawmakers are arguing over whether a new law would discourage immigrant caregivers. Some protest, citing overregulation, but Claire doesn't flinch. She reads aloud a list of names: children harmed by nannies with falsified identities, or overlooked red flags. Her voice breaks only once when she says Hazel's full name. The Hazel and Micah law passes by a wide margin. Washington becomes the first state to mandate triple vetting for in-home caregivers and make falsifying nanny credentials a felony. Other states follow. Historians still argue whether the law came from tragedy or lobbying pressure. But everyone agrees on one thing: it worked. Reports of caregiver abuse in the state drop significantly. A database is launched, and every year, on November 12th, a moment of silence is held in 5 Seattle school districts. You hear it in real time. Playgrounds pause, pencils stop moving, and the sound that fills the space is not grief, it's respect. Claire later says, "I didn't want them remembered for how they died. I wanted them remembered for how they made people feel." You sit with that, because memory is a kind of architecture. And Claire, somehow, has rebuilt a sanctuary from ruins. A strange fringe theory from early Mesopotamian civilization claimed that tears had physical weight, that grief left salt in the soil, and that from that salt, something new might grow. Maybe that's what the Graysons have done, not replaced, but planted. You're standing in the Grayson apartment again, though it no longer feels like the same place. The blood's been scrubbed, the carpet's been replaced. The bathroom door now creaks when it opens, a sound Ethan refuses to fix. There's a baby in the crib, Jonas, born in 2016. A quiet child, eyes like Claire's, temperament like Hazel's. He doesn't laugh much, but he hums in his sleep long. Thoughtful tones that make Claire pause every time she hears them. She swears it's the same melody Hazel used to hum when playing with her stuffed flamingo. Is that possible? You're not sure, but you stay quiet. The apartment has fewer photos now. No more gallery wall. Just one framed drawing Hazel's glitter heart. The one with Nora written backward. It's not hung, it sits in a drawer. Claire opens sometimes when no one's home. Jonas's arrival is not a replacement. Claire says this again and again. She is not starting over. She is continuing. That's different. Still, she finds herself checking on him more than necessary. Door slightly ajar. Nanny cam always on. The new nanny is a retired teacher from Vermont named Angela, mid-60s, sings in a jazz choir. Criminal record so clean it practically sparkles. Claire still doesn't trust her. Not completely. Historians still argue whether trauma rewires the brain or simply sharpens it. Claire has stopped trying to be normal. Normal was a house where someone smiled at her kids before killing them. Instead, she builds new rules. Never leave one child alone with a caregiver. Never assume politeness equals safety. Never ignore your gut. You watch Ethan change too. He cooks more, sleeps less. He's not as driven at work, but more present at home. He plays peekaboo with Jonas in ways he never did with Micah, and when Jonas says Dada for the first time, Ethan cries. The real kind, shoulders shaking, not because it's beautiful, though it is, but because he knows what it costs to hear it again. They keep Nora's name out of the house, even now. But Claire sometimes whispers it at night, into a pillow. Not out of forgiveness, just to remember who she's still angry at. There's a fringe grief theory that says if you don't name the monster, it grows teeth in your dreams. So Claire says her name once a month, just once, then locks it back in the drawer. Now you're watching Jonas at a toddler music class. Claire sits at the back, clutching her bag too tightly. Other moms talk about screen time limits and gluten-free snacks. Claire smiles, but doesn't join in. She lives in a parallel universe. In this one, you never forget what is possible, that a smile can be camouflage, that a doorman can nod you through the gates of hell without knowing. One afternoon, Claire finds herself watching Jonas nap, his tiny back rising and falling. He makes a sound, a small coo, and she flinches. Not because it's scary, because it's so unbearably normal. And for a second, she lets herself feel peace. Then, in 2019, Camille arrives. Born in early spring, on a windy morning when cherry blossoms flurry down like confetti, Claire didn't want another child. Not at first. She told Ethan, "I can't open another door. What if it slams shut again?" But Camille arrived anyway. Tiny fists, a scream loud enough to shatter memory. Camille is fire where Jonas is water. She demands everything. And slowly, quietly, Claire gives it. The nursery is painted pale green. A color Hazel once said reminded her of new frogs. Micah's baby blanket sits folded in the corner. No one speaks about it, but everyone knows who it belonged to. You pause here, because this strange, beautiful, heart-aching chapter is not about forgetting. It's about carrying the weight, the memory, the fear, and still getting up in the morning to pack lunches. There's an ancient Japanese practice called kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold, not to hide the cracks, but to honor them. The Graysons are walking, breathing kintsugi. You listen to Claire reading to Jonas and Camille at bedtime. The story is about stars, Hazel's favorite, Micah's too, though he always thought they were holes poked in the sky. Claire kisses both children goodnight, lingers in the hallway, then whispers, "I still miss you," to both of them. Always to both. You're at Lake Union now. It's early November again, 5 years since that day. The water is unusually still. Boats bob in place like they're waiting for something. Claire stands at the edge of the dock with a paper lantern in her hand, her breath visible in the chilled air. Jonas is beside her, holding a second lantern. Camille, still small, presses her face into Ethan's coat, not yet understanding why today feels different. This is a ritual now. Every year, on November 12th, the Graysons release 2 lanterns into the water. One for Hazel, one for Micah. They never miss a year, rain or not, cameras or not. It isn't about publicity, it's about memory. Tonight, Claire doesn't cry, not because the pain is gone, but because grief has grown teeth and tucked itself under her skin like a hidden scar. You learn how to carry it without letting it break you every time. Historians still debate the origins of water lantern ceremonies. Some trace them to ancient China. Others argue Polynesian fishermen used lanterns to call home the souls of the drowned. But most agree on this. Sending light onto dark water is one of humanity's oldest ways of saying we remember. Claire lets go of her lantern. It drifts. Next to it, Jonas releases his. He whispers something. Only Claire hears it. Hi, Hazel. Later that night, Claire writes in her journal, they would have been 11 and 7. Probably would have hated each other some days. Probably would have drawn on the walls. We were robbed of the normal stuff. That's what kills me. Back home, you walk through a house that's been redesigned but not redecorated. The same floors, the same windows, different shadows. There's a locked drawer in Claire's nightstand. Inside it, a knife, the one Nora used. The police offered to destroy it. Claire refused, not out of vengeance, out of proof. She says it's her reminder that even the warmest smile can hide a knife. It's not paranoia, it's survival. Claire and Ethan have stopped trying to explain this to anyone. Some friends drifted, others stayed but tiptoe around the past. Only a few ever ask about Hazel and Micah directly. Most people prefer sanitized grief. Instagram grief, the kind that wraps tragedy in ribbon and says, "You're so strong." Claire hates that phrase. She'd trade every ounce of strength just to smell Micah's blanket again, or braid Hazel's hair. But instead, she builds. The Hazel and Micah Foundation launches a program called Safe Start. It places trained caregiver advocates into hospitals to help new parents navigate hiring support. They push for federal policy now. Claire testifies before Congress, Ethan at her side, a Republican senator. Someone who once voted against childcare reform hugs Claire after her testimony and says, "I have a granddaughter. I don't know how you're still standing." Claire smiles, cool and tired. "I don't stand, I walk." There's a press photo of her afterward, shoulders squared, baby Camille on her hip, Jonas holding her hand. Behind them, the Capitol building glows faintly in the dusk. You hear whispers that the foundation is under consideration for a national grant. You hear a parent on a podcast mention Claire's name like a saint's. You hear Hazel's lullaby recorded from an old home video playing at a fundraiser gala in New York. The world is remembering them, not just the way they died, but the shape of their absence. One night, Claire sits with Ethan after the kids are asleep. She says, "I still check that bathroom door. I still expect to hear something. A splash, a scream. Sometimes, nothing is worse." Ethan doesn't answer. He just reaches over, takes her hand. In the silence, they breathe. There's a fringe neuroscience theory that trauma leaves echoes not just in memory, but in muscle, that your body remembers the panic long after your brain forgets the reason. Claire lives with those echoes, but she learns to soften them, to speak to them, to ask them what they want. Usually, they just want to be witnessed, just like Hazel and Micah. At the edge of the bed, Claire whispers their names again, and the night, for once, stays still. You're walking through the courthouse parking lot now, years later, but the wind still carries the same bite. Claire is here not for justice this time, but for closure. She's been called to testify one last time, not against Nora, but for a parole board hearing related to a separate offender tied to a caregiver fraud ring. The Hazel and Micah law helped expose it. Claire's presence alone carries weight, but it reopens something. Nora's name shows up in the documents again, not as a witness, not as a victim, just as a precedent. Claire reads the file, her fingers twitching. There's a line in the summary, "Subject has shown no remorse," and another that simply says, "Continues to claim she acted from righteousness, not madness." That one sticks. You're inside a quiet room now. Claire sits with a court-appointed therapist before the hearing. Not because she has to, but because sometimes, even a scar that looks closed will suddenly ache in the rain. You ever think about seeing her? The therapist asks. Claire blinks, then quietly, "Sometimes," just to see if she still pretends it wasn't murder. The therapist says nothing, because really, what's left to say? Back home, Claire doesn't tell Ethan about the file. She just watches the kids sleep. Jonas, now 9, has Hazel's stubborn streak. Camille at 6 is wild with wonder. She makes forts out of couch cushions, asks questions like, "Where do dreams go when you forget them?" and insists her stuffed unicorn is a real lawyer. Claire listens, then turns off the lights. The next day, she visits the prison, unannounced, not for confrontation, not for closure, just curiosity. You sit with her in the visitor's waiting room, a beige box with flickering lights and vending machines that wheeze when they work. Claire signs the paper, waits, and waits. But Nora refuses to come out. She sends a message through the glass, "I have nothing to say to you." That's it. Claire leaves and doesn't return. But later that night, she writes in her journal, "She didn't have to say anything. She already told the truth when she made me watch." Historians still argue whether silence is its own kind of confession. You think maybe it is? Sometimes. Now you're walking through a Seattle art gallery. Claire has helped curate a new exhibit, Unfinished Pieces. It features works from children lost to violence, recreated by surviving parents and artists. There's a canvas of crayon swirls turned into a blown glass sculpture, a lullaby transcribed into an orchestral piece, and in the far corner, a print of Hazel's glitter crown. The caption simply reads, "She called herself Princess Dr. Dinosaur. She was 6. Visitors weep here, not because of what was lost, but because of how deeply it was loved." Claire stands nearby. She doesn't guide people. She just watches. A reporter asks her why she continues to speak about it. She says, "Because the silence was the worst part. Not the blood, not the trial, the silence that came after. That's where memory dies if you let it." That night, she dreams of the bathtub again, only this time, it's empty, not clean, just empty. A void, no water, no blood, no children. She wakes gasping, but not screaming. That's new. She drinks water, checks the hallway camera, and returns to bed. Ethan doesn't wake. The kids stir faintly. The house is still. You wonder if healing ever ends, or if it just stretches out into thinner and thinner threads until you can't see them anymore. One fringe theory of grief says the sharpest memories eventually become background noise, like a hum. You forget it's there until someone shuts it off and suddenly the silence feels loud. Claire isn't chasing silence anymore. She's learning to walk alongside the noise. And when Camille wakes up with a nightmare later that night, Claire holds her close and whispers something you barely hear. They loved you too. You know, even if you never met. And in the hush that follows, something finally feels whole. Not fixed, but whole. You're sitting in the Grayson kitchen now, not the old one, the new layout. The counters are still white, but the chairs don't match anymore. And Claire likes it that way. Jonas is doing homework at the table. Camille is singing to her cereal, one foot tucked under her. Claire is watching the clock. It's November again. Hazel would have turned 13 today. Micah, 9. There's no party, no cake, no balloons. Just a quiet ritual that has, over time, replaced the harder anniversaries. Each year, the Graysons celebrate birthdays instead of deaths. They cook the kids' favorite meals. Hazel's was fettuccine Alfredo with peas. Micah's was, hilariously, cold string cheese and one single grape. Claire makes both, and you're here for it. She lights 2 candles on the kitchen counter. Jonas helps her set the table with paper plates. Hazel once decorated ones Claire found in storage and couldn't throw away. Camille, too young to know them, still sings their names like spells. Then Claire says grace, not a formal prayer, just a breath, a thank you, a whisper of their names. You know what's strange? Over the years, Claire has met dozens of other parents like her mothers and fathers who've lost children to unthinkable acts. And the thing they all say, the second year is worse because the shock fades and life expects you to keep going. And people stop asking, and you realize the world has moved on without you. Claire didn't. She refused. Historians still argue whether collective grief creates more empathy or more fear. Some believe we build better systems after tragedy. Others think we just build higher walls. Claire, for her part, is still trying to knock one down. This year, the Hazel and Micah Foundation expands to include a mobile app. It verifies caregiver references and issues alerts for flagged cases across state lines. It's already saved a child in Oregon, another in Idaho. Claire doesn't talk about that publicly, but she watches the numbers rise. Each ping is a life not lost, a mother who doesn't have to stand where she stood. Ethan calls from the living room. He's hanging a photo one Hazel drew in a crude family sketch with Nora included. Yes, but faint and half erased. Claire walks in and helps him straighten the frame. They don't speak. They don't need to. You step into a memory now, Claire's. Though she never says it out loud, she's back in the hospital. Moments after giving birth to Camille, the nurse had offered to take the baby so Claire could sleep. And Claire had said no, not because she didn't trust the nurse, but because trust, once shattered, becomes something you rebuild with fingerprints and breath. No one else gets to hold her babies anymore, not alone. Ever. There's an ancient Egyptian belief that the soul lives in 5 parts, and one of them, the Ren, exists only so long as your name is spoken aloud. Claire believes that now, not religiously, but practically, so she says their names. Hazel, Micah, sometimes to strangers, sometimes to herself, always on their birthdays, sometimes during interviews, once in the frozen food aisle, whispering to a toddler who looked just like Hazel from behind. She says their names because they deserve to be remembered for more than the way they were taken. You return to the table. The pasta's getting cold. Jonas is asking what Hazel was like. Claire tells him. She made everything dramatic. She once pretended to faint because I told her she couldn't wear sparkly shoes to a funeral. Camille laughs. She sounds like me. She was you, Claire says, in pieces. The candles burn lower. Claire lets them. She never blows them out. She lets them die on their own, slowly, like the story she tells every year, gently fading, but never gone. A fringe belief from rural Ireland says you should always leave a candle burning in a dark window on the birthday of the dead, to guide their spirit home. Claire doesn't believe in ghosts, but she does believe in remembering. And tonight, she believes even more in letting light spill quietly into the dark. You're at the kitchen sink with Claire again, long after the candles have guttered out. The dishes are done. The kids are asleep. Ethan's reading in bed, but Claire's still here, staring out the window like she's watching for someone who never arrives. Some nights, the silence is too loud. That's when she pulls out the memory box. It lives on the top shelf of their bedroom closet. Inside, a tiny ballet slipper, a hospital bracelet that once encircled Micah's wrist, a crayon drawing with both their names, written in Hazel's large, loopy handwriting. And in the bottom, the only picture Claire kept of Nora, not framed, not respected. But there, you ask why? She says, because pretending she was never part of it doesn't make it less real. And because I need to remember exactly what betrayal looks like. You can't argue with that. Historians still argue whether forgiveness is necessary for healing, or whether some wounds are meant to stay open. Claire has made her choice. She does not forgive, and she's made peace with that. In fact, she's learned to live alongside the wound, like a limp, or a scar you trace with your fingers when you're trying to remember how far you've come. You rewind a little back to the trial. There was one moment never captured by cameras or transcripts, a quiet bathroom break, when Claire stood alone in front of a mirror in the courthouse and asked herself aloud, what if I never stop hating her? And then she'd whispered, then hate her, but live anyway. Now, years later, those words have become a kind of mantra. She doesn't wear them on a t-shirt or get them tattooed in cursive on her forearm. She just repeats them when the air feels heavy and the lights flicker too long in the hallway. Tonight, the hallway is still, but Claire isn't. She opens her laptop and logs into a private foundation dashboard. A new alert has popped up. A family in Spokane used the app's Nanny Check feature and discovered falsified employment documents. That feature didn't exist before Hazel and Micah. That life didn't exist before Hazel and Micah. You're watching a legacy unfold not in speeches or awards, but in quiet prevention, in data, in lives spared, because one woman refused to let her pain disappear into pity. A strange fringe anthropology theory suggests grief acts like ancestral memory, that it shapes generations far beyond the initial event, like heat embedded in stone long after the fire's gone. Maybe Jonas and Camille will grow up stronger. Maybe they'll understand boundaries better. Maybe they'll love harder or safer. Maybe they'll ask tougher questions before handing their children off to someone with a smile and a resume. Claire hopes so. Now you're sitting on the living room floor. The Christmas tree is half decorated. Camille got distracted halfway through and declared the job complete. Jonas has built a cardboard fort behind the couch. Claire looks around and lets herself feel something dangerous. Joy, not constant, not unshaken, but real. You don't need to behold to laugh. You don't need to forget to smile. One night, while brushing Camille's hair, Claire asks, "Do you ever feel like you've got memories that don't belong to you?" Camille nods immediately. "Sometimes I dream about a girl with sparkly shoes, but I don't know her." Claire doesn't explain. She just braids her daughter's hair a little tighter, then whispers, "That means you remember her just fine. You're in the backyard now. It's spring." Claire is planting tomatoes with Jonas. Camille's helping, kind of. She mostly buries spoons and declares herself a garden pirate. Claire has always loved gardening. It gives her control. Seeds obey. Roots show up where they're supposed to. She thinks about Hazel every time something blooms. This year, she plants forget-me-nots. And for the first time in nearly a decade, something inside her loosens. Not her love, not her grief, but the edge of the grief. The part that cut so deeply she forgot what softness felt like. And when she wipes her hands on her jeans and leans back in the grass beside her kids, you realize she's not surviving anymore. She's living. You're in a classroom now, a modest community center, tucked between a pharmacy and a laundromat in South Seattle. The walls are covered in construction paper murals and watercolor splashes. A sign on the door reads, "Hazel and Micah, Creative Arts Circle, Mondays and Wednesdays, ages 5 to 10. Claire is here, watching quietly from the back. She doesn't run this program. That's intentional. She sponsors it, built it, even picked the curtains, but lets others do the guiding. It's not about her. It's about them, the kids. You see a boy with oversized headphones drawing robots in the corner. A girl painting swirling pink clouds that make no meteorological sense. But Claire smiles anyway, because Hazel would have loved that. Today's lesson is about storytelling through collage. Glue sticks click, little fingers tear old magazines. One child cuts out a headline from an article Claire recognizes from years ago, Seattle. Mom found safety movement after nanny murders. The child pastes it under a drawing of a superhero mom holding 2 glowing stars. Claire swallows, hard. She doesn't interrupt. She just walks to the hallway, takes a long breath, and lets herself feel the heat behind her eyes. Then she smiles again because this is what legacy looks like. Not awards, not applause, just kids, creating. There's a historical fact nestled in all this. In the aftermath of the 1911 Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, legislation around workplace safety transformed overnight. Grief became policy. Claire thinks about that often. How tragedy, when stubborn enough, can force change. Still, grief isn't linear. You find her 1 week later in bed with a migraine. Camille brings her ice. Jonas brings silence. Ethan brings coffee and just sits beside her, wordless. That's how they survive the bad days now. No forced optimism, just presence. You remember the note Nora wrote, the one police found folded inside a dish towel drawer. Claire never read it, didn't want to. But eventually, she asked the prosecutor for a copy. She keeps it unread, sealed in an envelope, labeled, "Not today." She says she'll open it when she no longer wants to use it as kindling. Back in the community center, a little girl gives Claire a painting. It's of 2 stars, one pink, one blue, holding hands. The child says, "They told me these were the kids who made all this happen. Are they still alive?" Claire answers honestly, "They are now," and she pins the painting to her office wall. You see Claire leading a foundation board meeting next. The topic, expansion into California, new legislation, a potential partnership with a national pediatric hospital chain. She speaks clearly, firmly. The same woman who once whispered Hazel's name into her palms now says it into microphones. She says Micah's name, too, even louder. And when asked what the long-term goal is, she doesn't hesitate. That no family ever says, "We didn't know." There's a fringe psychological theory that says the brain can rewire around trauma if given purpose strong enough to anchor it. Claire never read the papers, she just lived them. You walk with her after the meeting, into the parking garage, where her phone buzzes. A parent sent a message through the app. "You helped save my child. We were about to hire someone. Then your app flagged their credentials. Thank you for giving me a chance to stay whole." Claire stares at it, then replies, "Just promise me you'll tell your child why you double-checked. One day, because every layer of safety should come with a name." Hazel, Micah. Now you're at a playground. Camille swings high, hair wild, legs pointed like a dancer. Jonas reads on a bench. Claire watches them with the same ferocity as always. But there's more light in her now. Not peace, not forgiveness, just light. A fringe folk belief from the Basque region says a child's laughter can chase off spirits. Claire listens closely, and when Camille shouts, "Look at me, Mom, I'm flying," Claire stands up, shouts back, "I see you." And in the space between memory and motion, she does. She sees all of them. The children here, the children gone, and the part of herself that kept going, even when nothing made sense. You're stepping into a hotel ballroom now. Dimmed lights, linen-covered tables, the low murmur of donors and dignitaries sipping wine. It's the Hazel and Micah annual gala. And tonight, Claire is the keynote speaker. She doesn't love public speaking, never has, but she shows up anyway, always. The room hushes as she walks on stage. You see her pause, hand on the edge of the podium. Breath slow. Behind her is a projection screen showing faded photos, Hazel twirling in sparkly shoes, Micah asleep on a blanket surrounded by toy trucks. Claire begins softly. "I used to hate the word foundation," she says. It sounded cold, sterile, a word people said to keep from saying the truth. But now I understand it's exactly what it means. Something built beneath the weight. Something that holds you up when everything else falls. You glance around. There are parents crying, lawyers, pediatricians. One teacher dabs at her eyes with a napkin. Claire continues. "We weren't prepared." Not really. Because no one thinks it will happen to them. But it did happen. And the only reason I'm still here is because we made it mean something. She closes with a line she's never used before. "We were robbed of our children, but not of their names, and not of the chance to make sure the next child goes to bed safe." Thunderous applause. You're backstage with her now. Camille runs up and clutches her around the waist. Jonas offers a quiet fist bump. Ethan hands her a glass of water. She sips it, hands shaking just a little. Then Claire says something unexpected. "I think I'm ready to move." Not away from the mission, from the apartment. You walk through it one last time with her. The bathtub has been refinished. The floors sanded and stained a warmer color. Claire touches the kitchen counter with her fingertips, then opens the drawer where she's kept Nora's photo all these years. She doesn't shred it, but she doesn't take it with her either. She folds it, seals it, and places it in a locked box labeled only November. Let the future decide what to do with it. Historians still argue whether places absorb memory or reflect it, whether the home is haunted by what happened inside or simply by the echoes of who we used to be. Claire walks from room to room and says goodbye like it's a ritual. Hazel's room, Micah's toys, the kitchen table. She places a note inside the pantry. This house held the best and the worst of us. May it give someone else only the best. It's poetic and private. Now you're in their new house, a smaller home with an overgrown backyard and creaky stairs that Jonas immediately declares epic. Camille insists the attic is magic. Claire doesn't argue. The first night in this new place, Claire dreams of water, but not blood. Just ripples. 2 children, floating, not sinking, not hurt, just drifting, hands linked, faces soft with sleep. She wakes up crying, but when she opens her eyes, the tears are warm, not cold. That morning, Camille finds a ladybug in the hallway and declares it Hazel, saying hi. Claire laughs so hard she almost forgets to be sad. Almost. You're at the foundation headquarters again. Claire has started mentoring other parents, not just those who've lost children, but those navigating new childcare systems, terrified of making the wrong decision. She teaches them how to read between the lines on a resume, how to ask the awkward questions, how to trust their gut. She never says Nora's name, but it's there, beneath every slide, every checklist, every tip she gives. And one day, she's handed a file, a caregiver in rural Montana with a forged diploma and a pattern of sudden departures, caught by the app. Reported. The child under that woman's care, a 6-year-old named Hazel. Claire doesn't believe in divine signs, but she stares at that name for a long time, then places the file in the archive. closes the cabinet, and whispers, "You're safe now. You're in a bookstore now," tucked into a Seattle side street where the floorboards creak and the air smells like old pages and vanilla-scented tea. Claire stands between two tall shelves, thumbing through a copy of The Art of Noticing. It's not a parenting book. It's not about trauma. It's just quiet, and she needs quiet. Camille dances down the aisle behind her, holding a stack of picture books. Jonas browses nonfiction, all serious at age 10, hunting for a robotics manual. Ethan's at the register, chatting softly with the clerk about local schools. The scene looks ordinary, but you know better. You know how many small decisions led to this. Not dying, not drowning, not retreating. The Graysons have spent nearly a decade building a life out of what was left behind. And now, finally, ordinary is back on the table. That night, Claire lies awake, thinking about publishing her story, a memoir. Maybe, but something in her hesitates. Not because she's afraid, but because she's exhausted by the narrative people keep trying to make out of her pain. They want a clean arc, redemption, forgiveness. Claire doesn't offer that. Historians still argue whether public grief belongs to the griever or the public. Claire's answer is simple. It's hers. Hazel and Micah aren't lessons. They were children. They loved bubbles and bedtime songs and peanut butter on everything. Their lives didn't exist just to spark reform. They existed, so if the book ever gets written, it'll be about that. Not the tragedy, the texture. A few weeks later, you're in a school gymnasium. Claire's giving a short speech at Camille's first grade assembly, an informal talk about safety, empathy, and how to ask for help. One child raises her hand and says, "What if someone seems nice but feels scary?" Claire blinks, then kneels and says, "You don't owe nice people your trust. You owe yourself safety first." There's a silence that follows. Teachers nod, parents squirm. But the kids, they get it. Later, Camille tugs at Claire's hand and whispers, "Hazel would have liked my class." Claire squeezes her fingers. She's already in it. You're at the lakeside again. Not Lake Union this time. Somewhere quieter, with fewer buildings. The family has taken a weekend away. No work, no press, no calls. Claire brings only one photo with her. Hazel and Micah holding hands, grinning wildly in mismatched pajamas. It's been laminated. Jonas helped. They build a sandcastle. Camille insists on calling it Micah's fortress. They laugh, the kind of laughter that hiccups into joy. That evening, Claire walks to the edge of the water and places the photo gently in the shallows. It doesn't float. It doesn't sink. It just rests. "I'm not letting go," she whispers, "just letting you rest." And for the first time, you believe her. Back in Seattle, the foundation receives a major grant from the federal government. National expansion begins. Claire is asked to take on a formal leadership role. She declines. She's tired of being the face of grief. Instead, she nominates someone else, a mother from Texas who used the Hazel and Micah app to catch a fraudulent caregiver. That woman's child is safe. Whole, unscarred. Claire watches her give the first press interview, strong, steady. "I'm not here because something terrible happened." The new spokesperson says, "I'm here because someone else survived something terrible and built a net the rest of us get to fall into." Claire listens from her living room. She cries, not out of sadness, but out of relief, because the mission no longer depends on her survival. It's bigger now, alive. And as Camille builds a puzzle on the floor, and Jonas reads with his feet curled under him, Claire leans back onto the couch and lets the weight lift just an inch. Just enough. You're watching the Grayson family walk down a quiet street now, hands full of groceries and light jackets tied around their waists. It's early autumn, just cool enough to smell wood smoke in the air. Just warm enough for Camille to skip instead of walk. Claire stops at a corner flower stand. She picks up 2 sunflowers, Hazel's favorite. Then, without fanfare, she hands one to Jonas, the other to Camille. "Let's take them to the garden," she says. The garden isn't public. It's a small walled courtyard beside the foundation's headquarters. The plaque near the gate reads simply, "In bloom, always." Inside are raised beds of lavender, rosemary, and forget-me-nots. There's a bench with their names carved into the wood. Hazel, Micah, you sit beside Claire as the kids place the sunflowers gently into the soil near the edge. Camille asks, "Will they grow if we just stick them there?" Claire smiles. "No, baby. They're already finished growing. but we're not. And neither is this story. Because healing doesn't mean returning to who you were. It means learning how to live with the echo. Every birthday, they still light candles. Every November, they still release lanterns. Every once in a while, Claire still dreams of water. But lately, the tub is empty. The light soft, and her children are nearby laughing. Whole, out of reach, but not gone. Just further along in a story she'll never stop telling. She's learned to live, not despite it, but with it. And one day, Camille will read her mother's journals. She'll hear the whole truth, not just the legal version or the media version, but the quiet, cracked truth. And she'll see what her family built out of rubble: a life, a legacy, a home with every door locked not from fear, but from knowledge. You linger at the garden one last time. Jonas draws a silly picture in the dirt with a stick. Hazel in space, apparently wearing a glitter helmet. Micah's flying beside her in a rocket shaped like a spoon. Claire doesn't correct him. She just leans back, lets the sun warm her eyelids, and listens to her children, past and present, fill the silence with laughter. So now, as the garden quiets and the sky deepens to a soft gray, you step gently out of their story. You've seen grief transform. You've watched horror give way to ritual, to resilience, to a kind of peace that's never perfect but always earned. You've followed Claire through 1,000 private earthquakes, and somehow she's still here. Not because the world got softer, but because she got stronger. Not the kind of strength that roars, the kind that whispers, that gets out of bed, that makes peanut butter sandwiches, that says names no one else wants to hear anymore, that turns a bathtub into a battlefield, and still dares to fill it again with warm water for a new child. You let your breathing slow now. Let the weight of this story soften in your chest. It's okay if you feel heavy. It's okay if your heart ached. But know this, somewhere out there, someone built a foundation from ashes. Someone planted lavender where silence used to live. Someone refused to let tragedy be the end. They wrote another chapter. And if you ever find yourself walking through your own fire, may you remember Claire, Hazel, Micah, and the light that flickered but never went out. Sleep easy tonight. You're not alone, not in grief, and certainly not in love.